Is it significant enough that this bill is really going to do some good?
Oh, I think it absolutely will. It's providing funding for dealing with people who are incarcerated, who have addiction problems. It's providing naloxone, which is a great way to save people's lives in the middle of a crisis. It's providing education. There's just a number of things that will just help us, I think, work on the problem. We've got a lot more work to do. We'll need to fund more over time. There's an amendment out there that's asking for more funding that I'm actually against, not because I don't think we should give funding long term, but let's get this program going. Let's spend this $120 million between now and the end of the year and then build on that with the success that we can gain.
Senator, help resolve for me why we're playing catch up on this. How did it get so bad that we needed to address it to this extent?
I think it's a lot of factors. I think it was overprescription of opioids. I think that the movement, the availability of heroin in particular, even more so than cocaine, has become a real problem. And so people, when you take steps to maybe bend the curve on opioid prescriptions, then we're seeing people migrate to illegal drugs, heroin, and it's just gotten ahead of us. That's why we've got to put a priority on dealing with what is absolutely a crisis. Over the last 24 hours, I've had two people I know personally call me up and thank me for working on this issue because both of them have lost sons over the last 2 years.
You know, since this is going on one of our stations in North Carolina, elaborate on that example, please. What are they telling you?
Well, you know, they didn't know. I mean, that they were maybe in college, or they were somehow exposed to prescription drugs that maybe they were not prescribed, but they've gotten their hands on it. They're highly addictive substances, and I mean, it's happening across America. It's happening. I'll guarantee you, it's happening in your neighborhood. It's happening in schools. It's a broad-based tragedy and epidemic that we've just got to start focusing on, kind of check the partisan biases and focus on solving the problem.
Well, Senator Markey and some others, Senator Portman, have all been out on this, and it sounds like it is bipartisan.
It is bipartisan. That's why I want us to move quickly to get this bill to the president's desk. Let's, you know, some of the things, the amendments that are maybe appropriate for the next phase of this bill. This is a fight that we're going to have to fight for many years. And this is a great first start. The CARA bill, Senator Portman, Senator Ayotte have done a lot of work on it, but it is a bipartisan bill. We need to keep it that way, get it to the president's desk.
As far as the public's concerned, you know, I date back to when LSD and heroin and some of the illicit drugs were really prevalent, and then that kind of disappeared. The psychedelic era came and went.
Right.
Are we talking just the abuse of prescription drugs, or is there this illicit market still?
Well, there's still an illicit market, but I think what we've seen now with the nature of these drugs being opioids is we've just seen that as a bridge, so that if the availability of the prescription drugs, and these are bad, these are every bit as bad as heroin, so we shouldn't make it seem like one is better than the other. They're both horrible, but they provide more of a natural bridge because the nature of the addiction is such that you can move between a Percocet or an Oxycontin and a heroin because that's the nature of the addiction that the people are afflicted with.
Now, I asked Senator Portman the same question. What role do the drug manufacturers play in trying to curtail the problem?
You know, I think it has more to do with the provider networks. I think it has more to do with the doctors, the people who are in it. What we don't want to do is have the pendulum swing in the other direction and not provide these sorts of drugs to people who need them. I mean, people with chronic pain, if you take a look at people with chronic pain, they have disproportionately high suicide rates. So it's more a matter of training the doctors and the healthcare professionals to understand and look at where there may be vulnerabilities, to be very judicious with how much they prescribe, and to have follow-up mechanisms in place so that we know whether or not someone who may have legitimately gotten a prescription is actually on a path towards addiction.
One more question from the constituents who have recently reported to you their own problems with this. Were you surprised by that?
I can't, you know, it was very personal because there are people that I know very well. I was saddened by it, but not surprised because this is an epidemic that touches every socioeconomic strata, people in all ages of life. And I think it just brings it home when you have a father talk about the loss of his son.